is everyone here just a Canadian citizen? That's what I'm assuming. Like you guys are not green card holders or US citizens. Anyways, let's begin, guys. Okay? Okay, let's start really soft. What state would you guys want to study in if you got in? Because I have so many schools in my head. I can drop tips in uh and really tailor the content. If you guys could study in any state, what state would it be? Boston, right? Cool. Cool, guys. Awesome. So here's a bit about me. I'm a third year medical student. I've been accepted to both US and Canadian medical schools. I've done interviews across, many different provinces, different states, from New Hampshire to Wisconsin to Florida. Okay. So I've seen how it works. I also have a non-traditional background. I worked in tech. Uh, okay. So why study in the USA? Let's quickly go over reasons you want to do this. Generally, there's more opportunities, like the population's, almost 10 times that of Canada. With that comes a ton of opportunities in government and research. Holistic review, they look at you as a whole, they look at every component of your application. Different schools weigh differently. It's just one application in Canada. Every school is doing its own thing. It's kind of, other than Ontario schools, it's kind of a mess. Okay. There's no centralized system. And people struggle to apply to more than just, the few schools in their province. There's tons of cool places to be. I don't think I need to convince you guys of that. LCME rules, if you guys are considering doing residency in the United States, as of 2026, which is this year, graduates of Canadian medical schools will be considered international medical graduates in the American match. This is in stark contrast with people who graduated last year and before that, who would essentially be equivalent to an American MD. So if you guys want to practice in the United States, do residency here, it is in your best interest to go to a medical school in the US. Schools have different vibes. We're going to get into that. Some really like applicants who have a lot of service, which means volunteering. Okay. I'm going to teach you guys about the lingo real soon. Uh, schools that accept Canadians are treated as like an out-of-state applicant, so you're not really that like far below in how hard it is to get in. They have rolling admissions, so Canada has strict deadlines. This can be of use to you. You can go get an MD or a DO. They let you do the same specialties. With DO, it's a little bit tougher to get into more competitive specialties, but you can still be, a plastic surgeon with a DO degree. It's just, it's hard to get into that residency program. Earning potential is much higher in the US. Tech innovation and funding, I mean, venture capital, everything's in, much, much higher in the United States. Higher residency match rates. So in general, as a medical graduate in the US, there's a higher chance a US medical graduate is going to match into a residency than a Canadian one, especially because there's so many residency spots, right, compared to Canada. World-class training. These are globally recognized names in Canada outside of, U of T, McGill, UBC. Once you start training at some different institutions, it's not as recognizable. Whereas here, even if you're at like, a little bit lower down the tier list, people will still recognize, University of Tennessee, right? Globally. So early clinical exposure, different schools have different curriculums, strong education. Some schools in Canada, they don't learn microbiology, they don't learn anatomy at those schools. I'm not going to mention which schools. You guys might know which ones I'm talking about. Alumni networks, diverse classmates. I have classmates who are in the military, who have been in the Olympics. So really cool people. Obviously, you'll see those in Canada too. Geographic and political variety, doesn't matter where your politics lie. You can find a school in a state that may match that. More lax on GPA, so maybe you have a 3.7, and every Canadian school is like, oh, that's too low for us. But yeah, there's more flexibility, there's more of a holistic angle at a lot of these schools, and it's easier to return if you want to go back to Canada for residency than many other options in terms of going to school outside of Canada. You might be close. Okay, so basics lingo. If I use some words, I just want to know what words you guys know what words I'm using because I've been here for so long. In Canada, you say marks, here you say grades. In Canada, you say I'm going on an exchange, here you say study abroad. In Canada, you guys say keener, here it's gunner, okay? Here, there's just one application portal, it's the AMCAS. If you want to apply to an MD, a medical doctorate degree, granting school, an MD school, you're going to use the AMCAS. If you want to apply to a DO school, you're going to use the AACOMS, a CUMAS. I'm not going to be going over that today, okay? I'm going to talk about MD granting institutions today. When you're done residency, you become staff. Here we call it attending. If I say college, I'm referring to university, guys, okay? what you guys call college, here it's called community college. So what you guys call university, like your 4-year bachelor, is called just college in the US. If I say, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, this is what they are referring to. Here they say taking an exam. We call them letter writers, recommenders, not referees. Here's some other guidelines. So yeah, instead of school-specific essays that you might have to write in your OMSAS, we have a primary application, which is a common application sent to all schools, plus school-specific essays that come later on, like literally almost 2 months later, and those are called your secondary essays. Okay. Instead of cutoffs, which are used in Canada, here it's more holistic review, and instead of fixed deadlines, which are used in Canada, and fixed dates that you're accepted, here it's more of a rolling admissions process. Okay. So guys, begin preparing now. I don't know how many of these requirements you guys have, but this is generally what you want to set yourself up to apply to any kind of American school. You want Gen Chem ×2 with lab. You want organic chemistry ×2, OChem 1, OChem 2. You guys call it Orgo, right? In the US, OChem, organic chemistry plus lab. Biochemistry, some schools will require lab, some don't care about lab. At McMaster, I did it with lab, but it was like a virtual lab component. A lot of schools accepted that. 2 times English. You need writing intensive courses. Some of them just say, okay, they have to have like the English, when you sign up for a course, right? It says like English, 252, right? Though just having the name of the course, like have English in it is so useful, guys. Because we had, I had some classmates who took really writing intensive courses, but it said like health sciences, 2FO3 or whatever. And they had to email the schools, they had to, make sure of things. If it just says English, make everyone's life easier. Physics, usually ×2 with lab. Bio ×2 with lab. Guys, this was a pain. This was a pain for me because I'm McMaster, the health sciences program, right? They say, okay, we have it easy. Yeah, our bio, we had cell biology. It didn't come with a lab component. So I had to go to the life sciences director and email them so many times. Can you please let me take a bio lab course, which would fill in the amount of units or credits I needed for bio lab. And it took like 2 months of emailing them to just let me do that because it wasn't part of my major. Yeah, by the way, you guys say program. In the US, we say major, okay? So health sciences was my major. Get used to this because that's how they're going to talk to you in interviews. Yo, guys, I don't think any resource exists like this to like literally translate what's these terms for Canadians. Okay, calculus, some schools require 1 semester of calculus. Generally, they're going to say we just want 2 semesters of math. So I took linear algebra and calculus. A lot of people just take Calc 1 and 2. I took linear algebra because I was interested in that. Add translation to BrightDoc. Yo, I like this guy. Whoever's commenting, whoever's in the chat right now, that's a funny person. I like that. And a lot of schools will require 1 semester of psych and 1 semester of sociology. Most schools will just say we want 2 semesters of psych or sociology, but some schools will specify we need at least 1 to be sociology or we need 1 at least to be psych. And for that reason, it's safest to have 1 of each. Okay. And then look at every single school, guys. This is the most annoying part. You got to look at every single school you want to apply to. But if you have a question right now, there's a really good chance I'm going to answer it. Like a really, really good chance over the course of this presentation, but you can still drop your questions in the chat. Okay, humanities, cell biology, anatomy, genetics. It's just there's a chance they might require these courses at the specific school you're applying to, and especially the ones that accept Canadians, because that's what I was looking at. Okay, so yeah, so take these courses to set yourself up to be able to apply to as many schools as possible, because only 40 to 50 schools even give Canadians a real chance out of nearly 200 medical, MD granting schools in the United States. Here's some things. You can take courses during the year you apply and the next year, right? Because the application cycle takes a year. So if you're a third year, right now, yeah, the slides are going to be shared. I'm going to tell you guys how to access them at the end. So if you're a third year and it's February right now, right? So you're going to start applying now to get in after 4th year. So you can say, I'm going to take, for example, biochemistry in my 4th year in this semester. You can say stuff like that. You just have to make sure you do it. Okay. You can say, I'm going to take it this summer. You don't have to have taken all of them by the time that you apply, but you need to have taken all of them by the time you're you're going to begin, right? You're going to matriculate. Some schools don't accept online courses. Some say if it's during COVID, we accept it. Top institutions are generally more lax with course requirements. So I see like Mayo Clinic and all these top schools, a lot of them just they care less about specific courses and just say we want you to have experience in mathematics and English writing. So if you just take these courses, I mean, you'll have proven that. Okay, begin preparing now. Seek US experiences if you guys can. Uh, get US shadowing experience. Okay, I don't care if you have to drive across the border from Toronto. It takes an hour and a half. Dude, do it. Just get like 10 hours, 15 hours minimum. Um, so I used a study abroad, which is an exchange. You guys call it an exchange. I went to the University of Texas, the Longhorns. Uh, and over there, I just emailed doctors way before my exchange started, and I said, "Can I shadow? Can I shadow?" A lot of them said no. Some of them said yes, and boom, now you have U.S. shadowing experience. Okay, and if you guys really can't get to the U.S. for some reason, you live in Nunavut or some reason, then what I would recommend is just finessing something, dude. Just like going around doctors that hey, can I shadow you? I know it's kind of under the table in Canada, but you got to make do with what you have, right? You got to make do with what you have. If I'm applying without OChem 2 and Physics 1 and 2, is that chill? It depends on the school, guys. It depends on the school. You're gonna have to look at school by school, okay? Um, Yo, here's the thing. When it comes to AP credits and IB, some schools will not accept that as part of your requirements. Just you have to look at the school specific requirements, guys, and this is like part of your research phase. This is why this webinar is happening in February, okay? Applications are due in late May. That's like the beginning of when you can submit your application. That's why you guys are watching this in February, so I can get you guys to start doing this kind of research right now. Okay, clinical volunteering. A lot of people I know they do like gift shop volunteering, dude. Do not waste your life with that crap. I'm not even saying don't waste your time. Don't waste your life. Like, what are you learning at a gift shop? You're doing free labor, okay? Like, they should be paying someone to work the gift shop at a hospital. Um, Make sure what you do volunteering wise is interfacing with patients, okay? And if there's no opportunities at the hospital that you're at, I was at a hospital. They said, we have gift shop and we have emergency room where you can hand out coffee. And I'm like, dude, what the hell is this? Just go to a different hospital, drive a little farther, take TTC, take the transit, guys, figure it out. You need you need to have stories, okay? You're not going to get stories handing out coffee in the emergency room, waiting lobby. All right. I couldn't hear what you said about if we mentioned Canadian shadowing in our application. That's fine. Canadian shadowing is fine. It's just harder in Canada to get shadowing because it's not part of the culture. But if you guys can, finesse something with shadowing, it won't be a formal opportunity, but it'll be some doctors that that will just let you in there. Hopefully, you'll write a little patient privacy waiver. That's, get shadowing in. They're not going to be like, oh, you're Canadian, there's no shadowing. No, guys. You're at a disadvantage applying from Canada. Okay, I'm not here to sugarcoat things. Get shadowing experience in. Uh, and there you go. There are 4 more programs now. I have 100 hours. Good job. That's more than I had. I had like 50 hours. And I was in the US for 4 months in Texas, getting those hours. So you're ahead of me. So early season is right now. What the heck are you guys supposed to do? Okay. Take the MCAT if you haven't by March. I don't want to see you guys pushing your MCAT till April if you haven't taken it. It's just like it makes your cycle hard, guys. It makes your cycle really hard, and you're going to begin to understand. Yeah, I'm saying like April. April is like the absolute latest, but you're making it hard on yourself. So March is like, all right, this is like the last, and you'll still be comfortable applying. If you get it like by end of um April, like you're gonna be in a time crunch, dude, guys. Like I wouldn't. It is possible. Um, but you'd make your life difficult. So begin identifying who's going to write your letters of recommendation. So 3 to 5. I mean, you can add up to 10 in the system, right? And it's really cool. You can pick which letters you want to send to which schools. Okay. So if you know a school is really interested in service and applicants with volunteering, then you can have like more of your volunteering letters be sent to that school. So you can game it. If someone you think wrote you like a weak letter, toss it out. You can game it, guys. Yeah, and vary your writers. So have like a volunteering writer, a research writer. someone who's seen you in a clinical sense, that might still be volunteering. These could be the same thing, right? Volunteering could be, I don't know, like a homeless shelter, right? Or your volunteering could be clinical, and an academic, like a professor. Some schools say they require a committee letter, which is like if your university has a I'm going to start using the American terms just so you guys are getting used to it. So if your college has a pre-health advisory committee or a pre-health department, then those schools would require a committee letter from your school. Okay. In the vast majority of cases, I've seen that they said, if your school doesn't have that, we can accept individual letters of recommendation, which is, in my opinion, what the vast majority of Canadians are going to do, or just submit individual letters of recommendation. You're not going to have a committee letter because we don't really have pre-health, like pre-med, pre-health advising committees at our institutions. So brainstorm your personal statement. You should be doing that right now. Your activities and the narrative of your application, right? You want to have a theme. Make sure it's unique, but I say stay safe. A lot of people they start writing these crazy like trauma dumping. Um, it's fine to mention trauma. Likely it's a lot of people's reason for medicine is some sort of a person who had like a health condition in their family. I call it the catalyst story, okay? But the thing is, like, if it's between saying some crazy essay that you think is gonna, you're hoping will really stand out, and just having a really normal personal statement, like, this happened, it got me interested in medicine, so I pursue these activities. I would always prefer average over something crazy because average is above average because there's a lot of people just screwing themselves over with these insane, just like weird stories that really aren't hitting like they intend to. Show interest in the USA if you can. So for me, I talked about, my exchange in the United States that I did it was on a Fulbright Killam fellowship. You guys can look that up. It was it's a very competitive scholarship you guys can get. It's one per school in colleges across Canada. Okay. So the personal statement, you have 5,300 characters. And yeah, there's many types. You can talk about like a catalyst, clinical research, MD PhD. If you want to apply MD PhD, anybody in the chat want to do MD PhD, type it in because I'll give you some advice on that. Otherwise, I'm going to skip that. Okay, so Kiara, there are schools that will not accept Canadians for MD, but will accept Canadians for MD PhD. So definitely look into those schools. Make sure you understand the distinction there. Use AI to edit, guys, not brainstorm, okay? And since we are part of the Bright Doctor, I want to quickly point you guys to thebrightdoctor.com, where if here, let me just reload the page. If you were to log in, we have something called a personal statement and activities bank. This is fully American. This is an American resource where we purchased 25 personal statements from accepted medical students. There's MD PhD essays, and you guys can click through them. A diversity essay or kind of like a service-oriented personal statement, and you guys can look through and get inspiration from 25 accepted medical students in the US and see how they did their personal statements, okay? So why do I say don't use AI to brainstorm your essay from scratch? Because of this problem. If you ask chat, what's the best flavor of ice cream? What's it gonna say? It's always gonna say something pretty bland. It's vanilla, chocolate. Oh, it depends on your taste. Here are some good ones. Lemon, key lime pie, right? Well, in my opinion, the best ice cream in the world, because I'm Persian, is saffron and pistachio ice cream, right? So this is what I'm trying to get at is when you use AI, it gives you the most average answer that will please the most amount of people. And for that reason, your essays will just be bland. Okay, it'll push everybody to look like the same kind of wording and the same kind of style that it knows is the safest. But just because it's the safest, when there's other applicants with telling unique life stories, you don't want to have AI be the starting point for your essays. Yeah, and I also wanted to mention here, we also have a video course, crafting the perfect personal statement, where a medical student actually goes over, how to craft it paragraph by paragraph. Cool. Transcripts, now is also a great time, guys. You could literally start right now. Go on AMCAS, the website, and go start requesting your transcripts, okay? I mean, it's a little bit early actually because you'd want your this semester's grades in there. But yeah, think about that. Think of the procedure, understand how long the procedure takes. because I've seen this become like the worst part of someone's application is like my school can't give it in time or my school has all this stupid procedures. Okay. All right, school list. So how do you identify your school list, guys? Pick Canadian-friendly schools. Save your money. I had friends that would apply to schools that they loved. Okay, I want to go to the University of Texas, Long School of Medicine in San Antonio. Dude, they have never accepted a Canadian ever, or an international student for that matter. Um, and don't lie to yourself. Look at your stats. Consider not applying to that school because it costs around $50 for the primary application, and then the secondary application costs like another up to like 100, 120, $130. So you could be looking at 150 to $200 per school just to apply to that school. Okay. Look at historical data. MSTAR. So we on the Bright Doctor, we have a completely free resource. If you log in, you click MSTAR right here. All the US schools are right here. Click on this button, accepts Canadians, okay? And then if you want, click on high percentage international, which looks at which schools have a relatively high percentage of international students at them. Completely free resource, okay? There's an official resource called MSAR, okay? This is a paid resource. So we did the research for you guys. This is an official resource where you can see the data on the medical schools. We did the research for you guys and it's completely free. Okay, so say, you can save $40, whatever it costs. And yeah, you can click on the school, like view details at UPenn and, go look at their friendliness, mission statement, dates and deadlines and stuff like that. Okay. It's going to be updated actually next month for this current cycle. Forget about certain states. Schools in Texas, I just never seen except Canadians. Arizona, Florida, with one exception. If you guys care to know that, ask me in the chat right now. I'll tell you which school in Florida. Another obstacle is yield protection. Okay. There are schools. So I got interviews at like Dartmouth, Mount Sinai, these really top schools. And I was wondering, like, all these schools that are ranked lower, why am I not getting interviews at them? And the answer is yield protection. They see your application. If they think you're too competitive for their school, they're not going to offer you an interview. And that really sucks. Okay, that really sucks. Yeah, so that's New York Medical College. If you guys look it up, it'll have like, what is it? Let's just look right now. New York Medical College, New York Medical College. So their average MCAT is like a 516, 3.8. That's pretty high, guys, 516. But, in a world where average MCATs are like 522 at like some crazy schools, they just never gave me an interview. So yeah, the school in Florida, guys, is Mayo Clinic. So Mayo Clinic, you can do a 2+2 track, go in Minnesota 2 years, and then go to Florida for 2 years. There's no school you can spend all 4 years in Florida, to my knowledge, as a Canadian. Schools have different vibes. Research heavy school, these are going to be your top academic centers, okay? It's going to be like Johns Hopkins, Harvard, Stanford, UPenn, Columbia, all these schools. If you're big on research, they're going to appreciate that. Service heavy schools, okay? That's like Rush Medical School in Chicago, big one. Some of the ones in Washington, D.C., okay? A lot of the California schools like UCLA, really service, social justice heavy schools. Depends, like what's your vibe? What's your application vibe? Okay, you can use that to tailor your strategy and how you're applying to these schools. Yeah, so Hirsch, put that big question, please, into the Q&A. And to the person who asked about slides, yes, I'm going to show you how to access the slides at the end. Some have strict financial requirements, guys. So there are schools like Stony Brook University. This is in New York, Long Island. I interviewed there, and I did very well. But they messaged me. They said, "Hey, listen, right now, before they put me on like a very high waitlist position. They said you're basically going to get in. It's just going to be like a month till you get in. But right now, you have to send us proof that you have assets or your family has assets equaling to over $430,000. Okay, so essentially, it would prove that I could afford going there. So there are schools that will make you do that, and it's typically listed on their website. And they'll make you do that because you're Canadian. They don't make everybody do that. And I applied to 25 schools. Generally, you should be trying to apply to like a lot of schools in the US, like 25 to 30, 35 schools. Okay. And in fact, you guys can follow me. I made a new Instagram account for this kind of stuff. ExtendMD. I'm going to be dropping the school list I applied to in about a week or two. So you guys can know exactly the schools I applied to and what I thought of it as a Canadian applying to them. Okay. April to May. So are you guys cool with February to freaking March? April to May. This is when you start filling out your primary application. So it opens in early May, but that doesn't mean you can't work on it, right? You can't start thinking of your personal statement activities and your three most meaningful essays. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm gonna make a lot of comparisons with the Canadian process. So activities, there's 15. Okay, I know your OMSAS is 32. McGill is like the CV. Like everybody's doing their own thing, guys. This is okay. It's gonna simplify your entire life. 15 activities. Each of them are 700 characters. Now, here's the thing. When you're filling them out, you want to have some narrative element, some storytelling element. You still want to pop in big numbers. You want to have numbers in there. You want to have good figures, things that make sense, help the reader of your application be able to understand, the impact you made and how to compare it against applicants, right? Like I started this club that got 200, members, right? You want to have those numbers in there. But whereas OMSAS is simply like, strict facts because it's a very small text box. Here you want to have some sort of narrative. So I just took this picture from online, but we're gonna look at my application soon too. Like here, like once a week for an experience of like volunteering, right? I volunteered at the Iowa City Hospice, spending time with patients, most of whom were in their final days. It was my job to keep them company and also help with cleanup, meal times, and communication with residents' families. Having seen my own great aunt enter hospice in Des Moines, this experience was close to my heart and opened my eyes. Difficulties and rewards of palliative care. Boom. You see, it's like a nice reflection. It's like what you did, plus a reflection, plus some sort of narrative. That's what you want to hit. This is kind of short. This person had another 300 characters. And 3 out of your 15 activities, you're going to pick as your most meaningful essays. Now, I know you guys are like, oh, I'm so far away from this. Like, why do I have to care? No, you want to care because it's going to hit you fast. And like thinking about it now is going to help you, like, set it, let it marinate in your brain for months, which is going to help you have a stronger application. Okay. So here is an example of an essay that someone said was one of their top 3 most meaningful essays. Okay, and you get to have an extra like there's a new text box that opens where you can explain why it was so meaningful to you. You pick this with 3, and if I were you, I'd vary it, right? Like one is a research experience, one is a volunteering or a clinical experience, and one of them could just be something that's very meaningful to you that a lot that other people wouldn't have, right? Maybe you did high level sports or something, right? That's what I would do. Here was one of my experiences. So I started this club called McMaster Health Tech. So this was my activity description. I said going into my sophomore year, right, guys? If you say going into my second year, you're gonna throw them off. You need to use the American words. That's why I gave you a glossary at the beginning. Going into my sophomore year, I noticed that my university lacked a club dedicated to the intersection of medicine and technology, so I founded Mac Health Tech, an initiative for students to learn and write articles about the latest in health tech innovation. Every year, club members pick from a list of health tech topics, for instance, CRISPR, stem cell therapies, and submit a 600-word article, which is then published on our website, machealthtech.ca, after rounds of editing. I created the site and grew the club to 6 editors and execs in 2 years with over 20 student articles published to date. The club's growing impact has helped it earn university affiliation, which is MSU at McMaster. If you're from McMaster, drop in the chat. MSU, McMaster Student Union affiliation, and funding for the upcoming academic year. So you can see it's like a very solid, exactly, that was in chat. It's a very solid, just, description. Now let's look at the most meaningful, like how I describe this as one of my most meaningful. The first rule that I established when I founded Mac Health Tech was to never reject an applicant wishing to write an article. Seeing how competitive it was for college students. See, I'm using college, right? I'm not using university, guys. You see, like, use the right words, especially those with few experiences to get involved in meaningful activities. I decided not to add that to that stress and instead allow any student to get mentorship and exposure to scientific writing in the riveting health tech space. To ensure quality of articles, my team and I developed article writing guidelines, and we work with students through rounds of revision before publishing the articles. Last year, our process allowed club member Danielle, who joined as a freshman, right? Not as a first year. Having little knowledge of mRNA cancer vaccines, to write a stellar article on the topic that became one of the most viewed on our website. Seeing this progress in Mac Health Tech's members is highly fulfilling. Further, since many of our members are pre-medical students, Mac Health Tech also achieves its aim of educating tomorrow's health leaders and practitioners about the innovations that are extending the reach of medicine. Growing Mac Health Tech has taught me how to not only identify a need in my community, but also act by leading a team towards a common goal to ensure that need is filled. This skill will support me in providing team-based care to address patient needs as a future physician. Right. And so just because, if you use the wrong word, they're going to understand it, but I'm just, I'm highlighting it for you guys as Canadians, but ultimately that's not the most important part of this essay is, right? This essay is the most important thing I'm trying to highlight. So when do you finish your primary application? Remember, I said it, the portal opens in early May. Submissions start by late May, and typically May 28th is the deadline. It's not a deadline, sorry. It's the first day you can submit your primary application. Who do you submit it to? You submit it, I suppose, to the schools, but actually, before this, you're submitting it to AMCAS themselves, okay? You're submitting it to the portal. You don't actually even have to have chosen any schools as part of your school list when you do this. You don't have to have, and you don't have to at all. There's no benefit to doing that. I'll tell you why. Take the time to think about the schools. You can take time to think about the schools. Because here's the thing, the vast majority of US schools work on rolling admissions. So some schools are extremely sensitive to this. There's schools like Tulane and George Washington. Tulane is in Louisiana. George Washington is in Washington, D.C. It's a very top school. Tulane, by the way, guys, if you're going to Louisiana, if you're going to apply to Tulane, if you know French, like I'd mentioned that, right? Because Louisiana, you have Creole patients. A lot of them speak French, okay? Guys, like I'm telling you, this webinar is insanely tailored to Canadians. It's unbelievable. You stand little chance. So there are these schools like Tulane and George Washington that have relatively lower MCAT, like average MCAT and average GPA. Let's actually go on MSTAR and check. It's like Tulane. Boom. So Tulane is their MCAT is like 512 average, right? Okay, let's check George Washington. And Georgetown is also one of these schools. These three schools in particular come to mind that accept Canadians, right? 512. And yeah, Georgetown as well. Let's look at Georgetown. So 515. Okay, that's a little higher. So these schools get some of the most number of applicants across the entire nation. They get like 15,000 applications. So the way, for one reason or another, and by the way, this is advice you'll find online. It's advice from my life. The way that they decide who to give interviews to, a lot of it seems to hold on how fast you can get your primary to them and how fast you can get your secondaries to them. Okay. And guys, it's rolling admissions, but even schools that say they're not rolling admissions. So, okay, you guys understand if it's rolling admissions, the sooner you apply, the sooner you can get interviewed and accepted. And then the more you wait, the more interviews and the less slots there are. You guys understand that concept, right? So there are some schools, especially the top schools, that say, hey, we don't do rolling admissions. Like Mayo Clinic is one of them, right? We give acceptances out starting in February. Well, even then, don't slack because interview slots are not infinite, right? As you progress, more and more people will have gotten their applications in, and they'll have less and less interview slots for more and more applicants. You don't want that. So submit as early as you can. And if you guys can, on the first day you're able to submit, I would submit on that day. Because remember, as a Canadian, you're starting at a disadvantage. Do not slack. Okay? Now, June. This is June. So here's what I want to show you guys. June, nothing happens. Nothing happens in June, okay? The thing with June is your application gets processed by AMCAS. And what gets processed in particular is your transcript. So that's why you need to get your transcripts in really soon, okay? But here's the super annoying part. If you submit your application right when the application opens, like May 28th, your transcript will get verified in a few days. Typically a few days. And then, you're just waiting because July is when your application, your primary application gets sent out to the schools. So that's why you can take all of June and then pick which schools you want to apply to. You don't have to do that necessarily in May. But again, you'll probably know by May because you looked at the requirements for each school. All I'm saying is, if you submit a few days later than when that application opens, now your application could take up to 4 weeks to process. So I submitted nearly a week later, okay? I wasn't super on target, but it took 4 weeks. It took 4 weeks for my application to process, and thank God there were no problems with it. Remember, it could have a problem with it, and they'll get back to you, and you have to like wait extra because there's going to be communication to fix whatever problems there are. And it was like mid-July by the time that my application finished processing. It was like 5 weeks, right? And by then, Tulane, George Washington, and Georgetown, again, these schools that get way too many applications, and they judge on based on how fast you're getting it back to them. The people who applied early already got, the secondary application from them and filled it out and got it back to them before I even had the chance to, get my primary application submitted to them. So I didn't get interviews at any of those schools. But I think that if I were on time, if I were on time, I would have gotten interviews at some of those schools. Uh, Especially, those three schools that I mentioned really care about that kind of stuff. Do you guys see why I'm telling you to get your MCAT done like by March? Do you guys see why I'm telling you that? It's so you could finish this on time, submit on the first, second, third day of the application opening, so you can get, the schools that accept Canadians, like those three that I mentioned, but get way too many applications, you're going to be able to get their secondaries back on time. And guys, if you're submitting like midway through June, it could take up to 2 months for your thing to process. And that's, in the best case that there's no issues with it, right? And here's actually a graph depending on like when you submit and how long it takes to process. So you see it hits like 40, 43 days right around here. This is just from one cycle. For my cycle, it was a bit worse. Okay, so now say your primary application's done. You submitted it early. I applaud you, okay? So what do you do now? Okay, you guys can chill out. Psych, you cannot chill out. You cannot chill out. So now that you've submitted your primary application, guess what? It's going to be the busiest time of your life. You're going to start pre-writing your secondaries. So here's the thing. If you go on any given school, like University of Pennsylvania, right? Click down here, secondary app questions. These are the last cycle's secondary questions. So it's like a secondary application. You guys familiar with that term? It's like a sub app. You guys call it a sub app in Canada, right? It's a supplemental application, and you're given more essay questions. A lot of them just like unique essay prompts and questions relevant to that school, like maybe why you want to go to that school, right? Explain your reasons for applying to the Perelman School of Medicine, which is University of Pennsylvania. So here's the thing. You're gonna pre-write your essays so that when your primary application gets processed and is sent out to your schools in early July, the second you get the secondary application, you can just copy paste and boom, send it back within like a few hours even, right? Or even a few minutes. I mean, depends how fast you are. Do you guys see what I'm saying? June, you're going to be pre-writing. You're going to be pre-writing and here's the thing, a lot of schools are known for like changing up their essays, but most schools don't change their essays between cycles and they keep the same essays. So that's why pre-writing is a very good investment of your time. Also, you're going to get the same questions over and over and over again, like, name a time you overcame a big challenge. Or like, how will you contribute to the diversity of our school, right? You're going to get these sort of questions. And it's just like different schools have different character accounts, right? Stuff like that. Yeah. So guys, yeah, it gets easier over time because you have the same questions over and over again. And one resource that you guys can check out is actually on our website. If you go on thebrightdocs.com, we have a secondary essay bank, and you'll just see different examples of secondary essays for different prompts for different schools. Yeah. Okay. Why this school is also a big one, right? So you're gonna have to like look into each school as you're applying, or for those secondaries because they might ask you that. Okay. Also, June is when you need to make sure your letters of recommendation are in, because by the time your primary application is sent and you get the secondaries back, if you completed the secondary application, but your letters of recommendation aren't in, like you didn't get that secondary your application's not ready for review. So all the things need to be like done at the right time. So yeah, technically you have until June to get your letters of recommendation in, but I'd try to get it in way before then. Does that make sense? Okay, now you guys can chill out, okay? So once you've done your supplemental essays pre-writing, you've submitted your primary application, now you guys can chill out. Psych again, you can't chill out, guys, because June is also a decent time. I'll tell you this. Yeah, because the different secondary essays are going to be different, but most importantly, you guys need to take your Casper and AAMC preview tests. Okay, this is where everybody's gonna like hate me for telling them the truth. But I'd rather hurt you with the truth than well, I don't know what the quote is. Anyways, so yeah, Casper and AAMC preview. So Canada, you're used to Casper, but between the two tests, 65%, more than 65% of all schools in America either like recommend or are using or are considering using like they're collecting the data, even if they're not going to use it in admissions, they either recommend it or, they will accept it. They will recommend you to give it. I'm just being redundant at this point, but yeah. And a lot of them require just one or two tests outright. So if I were you, I'd take both tests. Why? Because you want to make sure you can apply to as many schools as possible. For instance, in Minnesota alone, University of Minnesota requires the Casper, or sorry, the AMC preview, and Mayo Clinic recommends the AMC preview. That's just Minnesota, right? A lot of them require Casper. In other states, are you guys familiar with these tests, or should I like explain it? If one person is not familiar, I'm going to explain it. Just drop in the chat if you're not familiar with these tests. Yeah, so Casper is an ethics test where you're given 14 scenarios. Sorry, it's actually 11 scenarios now. Hey, shit, guys. I'm sorry if you hear that. Okay, 11 scenarios, and 4 of them you have to give a video answer to. 7 of them you give a typed answer. And AMC Preview is also an ethics, like an ethics or situational. It's called the situational judgment test, to be very precise. And this is multiple choice. For instance, a scenario for either one of them could be like you're working on a group project and one team member is consistently late to meetings. Casper would ask something like, how would you handle, this situation? And you're either going to give a video answer or a text typed answer. And AMC Preview is just going to give you like an action. Like, should you inform your professor about the situation without speaking to the student first? And are you going to give it a very ineffective, an ineffective, an effective, or a very effective rating? And you're both tests, you're scored against other people. So, in some ways, it's like the multiple choice version of the Casper. Does that make sense, guys? This is the AMC Preview test. On thebrightdoctor.com, we have a Casper question bank. Let me quickly show this to you guys. Let's go on test mode, half length, full length, whatever. There's over 100 scenarios just for the Casper. We have video scenarios. Hey, what's up? I'm just going to quickly proceed through them. Given the tension in the room, what would you do? In this situation, I talk to both parties, and then I call it a day. I'm just going to finish. Anyways, yeah, we have a question bank on Casper, and the reason people love our question banks is because you get graded. Each answer gets graded. We have thousands of examples of strong, fourth quartile. You're given a quartile. Are you first, second, third, or fourth quartile? So the best one is fourth. We have thousands of examples of fourth quartile answers written by real humans under Casper time constraints. We have examples that you guys can learn from. Your own answers are given a grade with feedback. And then also we have an AMC Preview question bank with over 100 scenarios again. Let's just do like 2 scenarios, create test, begin. And let's just, give random responses here. Boom, boom, boom. Next question. Let's just finish whatever. And it says, you did terribly, obviously, because I did random answers. But yeah, you're scored. So we give you guys instant feedback. And for AMC Preview, we help you see the distribution of how people are answering. There's rationales for why that was the right answer. There's heuristics you can use to get at that answer next time, and so on and so forth, guys. So our resource covers you for every single test you could encounter. And yeah, 2,000 plus model answers, instant feedback, trained on 50,000 examples, real human written examples on the Casper QBank and on the AMC Preview QBank, over 120 scenarios with the scores, and it tells you, why you're correct or not. If you guys can, take these tests earlier, okay? Take these tests probably, if you can. I took them in June. And your Canadian Casper will not work for the US cycle. It will not work. So to those who said, I already took Casperless cycle for Canada, it does not apply to the US. Wait, do I apply to US MD after third year or after fourth year? Kiara, if you're a third year right now, if you're in your third year, which means you're a junior, if you're a junior, then you begin applying essentially now in like a month or two. Does that make sense? Or 3 months technically for the MCAS portal. Yeah. So you start applying well before the Canadians start applying is when you start applying to the US. Okay. Does that make sense, guys? Like this timeline thing. If you guys want to apply for entry in 2027, you start applying like around now. Like you start thinking right now about this whole process. If you want to enter in like September of 2027 or August of 2027. Okay, yeah. So now say you weren't able to pre-write all your secondaries. I wasn't. I pre-wrote most of my secondaries, but some of them, I just received, or maybe I got a bunch of new questions and I didn't have time for them. People generally say get them back to the school within 2 weeks. You want to get them back within 2 weeks. And if you go on online forums, you'll see the random person who obviously doesn't understand statistics be like, the 2 week rule is a lie. I took a month and I still got an interview. Listen, guys, these rules are in place to help you optimize your chances, optimize the chances that the school's not going to be like, oh, this person, doesn't prioritize us. Certain California schools, for example, I think UCLA literally imposed a 2 week deadline to get that secondary back to them, for me. So yeah, just because some random person says, yeah, I took like a month and a half and I still got an interview, you don't know what that applicant's like. I mean, it's N of one, right? People don't understand statistics. I'm here to help you guys optimize your chances. Some schools are dreadful. For instance, Duke every year has a bunch of like random questions that change a lot, and they're super long, and there's so many questions, and people just dread filling it out. But some people say that because of that, if you fill out your secondary application, which some people just don't do because of how many questions there are, you're automatically at a higher chance just because there's like less applicants to that school that fully finish their application, even especially within a timely manner. So, if you guys really have the grit in you, yeah, prioritize Duke's application. Yeah, does that make sense? And initial interviews could come as soon as a few days after you get your secondaries in July. You could get an interview in July. I didn't, but you could. Okay, so your secondaries are done in July. What do you do now? Okay, now you can chill out and wait. Psych yet again, guys. Here's the thing, most people will just chill out and wait, but I'm not most people, and you're not because you're Canadian and you're applying, you're starting at a disadvantage, right? So I'm here to make sure you guys do everything you can to get in. Send updates. I would send one, if I didn't get an interview from that school, I would send them an update every 1 or 2 months. And they were meaningful. It wasn't like, hey, how's the weather up in New Hampshire or down in New Hampshire, right? Uh, but it's like, okay, oh, this got published, or um, you know, I started, I got accepted into this program, or I'm going to be doing this research fellowship this summer, or you hit a new milestone in one of your projects. Make them meaningful, and if you can, bundle 2 or 3 updates together just so it's more meaningful. Otherwise, it'll just bore them. Some schools don't allow updates until after the interview, like Mayo, and some schools don't allow updates in general. So respect that. If you send updates to a school that doesn't accept updates, that's not good. That doesn't look good on you. What else did I want to tell you? Yeah, this is in stark contrast with Canadian schools that just don't care. It's like, a few months later, you could have gotten published in Nature, and they just don't want to hear about it. They're like, it's not important in our decision-making process. So yeah, I appreciate the variability in schools in the US. So when you're going to hear back from these schools, right? Interviews, you get them as soon as July. You could get them as late as March. Guys, I got an interview in March. Taken my application, went to them in July. I sent back my secondary in July. I got an interview in on March 1st or like February 28th or something. And I had 1 day notice. I had 1 day notice, and this was with the Medical College of Wisconsin, guys. I'm gonna hold my thoughts, but yeah, like they gave me 1 day notice on an interview. Okay, so I mean it was insane. And my first interview was around November, if I'm or October or November, or I heard about it, I think as early as September, and then it was scheduled booked out like a few weeks later. That's September to March, guys. This is the crash course. Okay, this is the crash course. Interviews. So, uh, oh shoot, has it been an hour already? Dang, guys, I'm gonna speed through this. My bad. So yeah, MMIs. Are you guys engaged or am I yapping? Just tell me in the chat. Be honest. Yeah, vast majority are gonna be panel interviews. There's 2 interviews per school. Mostly I've just seen like one is with a faculty, one's with a med student, or two with different faculty. Okay, you guys are engaged. Nice, nice, nice. Medical student interview question bank. Yeah, so on the brightdoc.com, we also have a medical school interview question bank, which people love. I mean, it tests you, it gives you feedback. But here's the beautiful part is, look, I mean, I'm going to skip that. How does medicine contribute to climate change, and what changes should be made to reduce medicine impact on the climate? That's totally a question you could be asked in the US. You can give an answer. This is my answer. You can get a follow-up question. Should medical schools incorporate climate and health in their curricula? How so? I'm going to finish it. We have answers written by medical students for you guys to learn from, tips to go beyond, red flags to avoid. Um, Again, a sample answer for a follow-up question with an answer written by a medical student. Uh, there's a new feature this year where it literally scans your entire application if you upload a PDF, and it thinks of different activities you've done and how they could perhaps help you answer that question with a personal touch. So that's super useful, especially if you're going to do like a personal style question, like let's give like a personal style question. Um, what do you think makes a good physician and how do you embody these qualities? You know, I'm a great physician. I will be a great physician soon because I'm a big looks maxer, and obviously that's super important in a medicine, right? Okay, it's gonna tell me I gave a terrible answer. And we also purchase answers from several different medical students for these personal style questions, so you can flip through them and see how different medical students are answering those questions. And yeah, it looks through all your activities you've ever done and helps you think about things that you've done and how they could contribute to helping you answer this. So it really helps you think through your life and how to answer these sort of questions. Gives you personalized feedback. Obviously, it said I did terrible and gave me a bunch of areas to improve. Role play station, I've had that in Canadian interviews a lot, not always the US. But voice interview practice, guys, this is a free feature. You guys can use it right now for free. It's gonna be free this cycle. Go on grill mode. You upload your resume, you upload your application as a PDF or a Word doc, and it will grill the hell out of your application. And dude, people grilled the heck out of my application in my US interviews. So for instance, let's click grill my research. Okay, grill all my research activities. You can pick a specific question to grill. Like you could pick one of your most meaningful essays, and it can grill that because you can upload essays. But let's just like grill my research, okay?
Your ASD disparities paper is still unpublished post EMEA. What flaw in your informatics methodology held it back from journal submission?
Okay, it's good. It'll grill the hell out of your your thing. So yeah, use those two tools. They're fully free. Yeah, know your answer to tell me about yourself and why medicine. Again, you can click on it here and go on grill mode, and it'll really grill your answer to those. So you're very strong in how you answer and have those answers down cold. I know Canada has a lot of MMIs, but here, especially for the schools that accept Canadians, most of them don't do MMI. Okay, American health policy. Yeah, in addition, we have question banks for interview question banks on American health policy that you guys could definitely check out. No Medicare, no Medicaid, no like HSAs, no all these terminology words. Okay, you guys need to learn about the American health system. They're not going to say, "Oh, it's a Canadian. We're not going to ask them any questions." No, a lot of times they have the same questions they got to ask everybody. So you can go to instead of test mode, you can do study mode if you guys just want to like study while you're sleeping, and it's literally like Anki. So like discuss the role of social justice in addressing housing, transportation, health care in the US, or what challenges are associated with Medicare's financial sustainability. Like I know you guys have never even like thought of this question in your life, right? But it's like you could need some sort of knowledge on this. And you can click view answer and you'll see like a real-time researched answer with tips to go beyond and avoid. So yeah, that's American health policy. Know the answer to why do you want to go to this school. So that's a big difference between Canadian schools is like usually they think this is maybe your only interview. And if you get accepted, you're going to go here. One time I got asked in a Canadian interview, like, why do you want to go here? It caught me by surprise, but I was ready because I had prepared for the US and I was used to just looking into the schools. So I was ready for that. But yeah, so know the answer to this, know the specifics, look into curriculum, look into the electives at that school. This is important for your secondary essays as well. And guys, look into state-specific health policy topics. So the Bright Doctor, because it was originally a Canadian company, we have state-specific health policy banks. They're usually like 5 to 10 questions max. Cali's a bigger one, especially for the states that accept Canadians. Okay, so yeah, you could look into like some problems in New York before your interview, maybe at a school in New York. Okay, so definitely do that. Um, yeah, we have 24 mini banks. That's what we call them. Okay, interviews are done. What do you do now? I'm not gonna say chill out, right? Because you guys are used to me, psyching you out. Again, send updates. So after my interviews, if I haven't heard back in like 4 weeks or 6 weeks, I'd send an update. Again, a meaningful update. The same update I'd sent to every other school that maybe hasn't interviewed me yet. And guys, every time I sent an update, I would get like a new interview or I get a response. Every time I sent an update, sometimes I get like 2 or 3 new interviews. Okay. So updates mean something. People are not using this strategy. So by coming to our webinar, I mean, you guys know that I did that. And send letters of interest or intent. So this is again a difference with Canada. If you really like a school and you interviewed with them, let them know. If you're like, yo, if I get into this school that I just interviewed at, I would 100% go. Send them a letter of intent. Okay, you send us to one school. But if it's just like you like that school and you just want to maintain some convo with them, you can send a letter of interest. It doesn't mean much, but you can do that. So Mayo, some schools really care about that. Mayo Clinic is one of them. So after my interview, a month later, I sent a letter of intent. Like, hey, if I get in here, I'm going. And I got an email back after a few weeks that said, hey, we really appreciate your letter. And yeah, we hope that that's still the case, right? And that was really that was really good email to get ahead of admissions, right? Ahead of acceptances. Okay, so that's September to March. What's April to July? So either you've been waitlisted or accepted at this point. Now, waitlisted, again, if you're waitlisted, that makes those updates even more expensive. Important. Sorry, I just read this insane comment in the chat. So yeah, so you're either waitlisted or accepted by March or April. If you're accepted, now I'm going to talk about the financial tools you can use, okay? So you're going to call the financial aid team. Ask for more aid. Guys, for some reason, I thought that, if I ask for more financial aid, they could withdraw my offer. No, I don't know why the hell I thought that. Do not think that. Do not make my mistake. Be, as obnoxious as you want. Talk to their financial aid team, email them, ask for more money, ask for more money, ask for more money. Say that, hey, these guys are giving me this much money, these guys are giving me this much money. If I stay in Canada, it's going to cost me this much. Like, just bother them. Just get as much financial aid as you can from them, okay? Some schools explicitly won't give aid to international students. They'll list it on their website. You can see that. And if that's going to be consideration for you, then obviously, consider not applying there. But again, if it's between, getting some crazy loans and starting school a year later, I always pick starting school earlier. Top schools are much more generous with respect to financial aid. Okay. When it comes to loans, you guys can get money from Canada. You can't do FAFSA, which is the American process. You can't do that for loans in America because if you're not a green card holder or you're not a citizen. So you're gonna have to get money from Canada in Canadian dollars and suffer some exchange fees. It sucks. But yeah, Scotia and RBC are best for this. Scotia's a bit better. Here's the thing though, the difference with Canadian schools is you can go to Scotia, say, hey, I got into med school, here's my acceptance letter, give me $350,000 line of credit, and they will give it to you. Okay. But when you get to school in America or internationally, they'll require a cosigner. So your parents need to have assets of some value, whether it's like an apartment, a townhouse, a house, something to show, even if it's in a different country, guys, just like show it, show whatever assets you can, because that's going to help you, get closer to that $350,000 line of credit that you can get. And they're going to essentially cosign your line of credit. It's not just going to be under your name, they're going to be the cosigners. And guys, consider shotgunning, okay? You didn't hear this from me. I don't know if it's allowed, right? I don't know if it's allowed, but you can apply to several lines of credit at the same time, and they'll all give you offers at the same time, and you take them all at the same time. Because if you do it one at a time, then they'll be like, yo, you already have like 200K from RBC, like we're not going to give you anymore, right? It's called shotgunning, okay? But hey, I don't know if that's allowed. So you guys need to make sure it's allowed, okay? Yeah, no more comment on that. Yeah, credit maxing, exactly. Um, so OSAP, yeah, you can get OSAP. I don't know if you guys are from Ontario. OSAP is the Ontario system. It maxes out for some stupid reason at like 11K per year if you go to an American school. It's enough to help you with some housing and miscellaneous expenses. But you really got to get started on OSAP early. Like the second you get in, get started on OSAP because it takes super long for them to process an American school. Some schools function like banks and give you loans themselves. These are called like I think institutional loans. I don't know too much about that, but it's school specific. Private loans are possible too, as you guys know. And guys, in my opinion, if it's between starting a year later and starting now, I'd start now every single time just because of the future, career earnings that you're going to be foregoing, um, you know, if you start 1 year later. And obviously, there's no guarantees that if you apply next cycle, you're going to get in. Get your F1 visa sorted. The second you get accepted, yeah, boom, that it could take months, guys. I had a friend whose F1 visa like couldn't get done in time, so the school actually allowed him to do online classes for a few months. That was, phenomenal, a phenomenal school. Some schools may make you defer for a year, but hey, I take that deferment over, uh, letting it go because it's an acceptance, right? And then, yeah, lastly, once you're in and onwards in the US, keep up to date with your F1 visa renewals. I think it's every year. Target residency programs that will sponsor you if you want to stay in the US. So, if you look at residency programs, make sure they're willing to sponsor international, someone who's from an MD school in the US, but is a Canadian citizen. Yeah, a lot of top programs are willing to sponsor people like that. So yeah, do research for those programs, rotate at those sites, use your brain, guys. You just like really network and schmooze. So you can, if you want to stay in the US for residency. If not, then network back in Canada. Do your away rotations back in Canada. Do research with Canadian programs. It's just what are your goals? Use your brain to achieve those goals. Now, okay, do we need this F1 visa or similar to even begin applying to US schools? No, you don't need it to apply. You don't need F1 visa to apply. F1 visa, a lot of the schools will help you once you're in. Okay, what about DO schools? So obviously this was not the topic of my conversation today, but if you guys want to know, we have an explainer on the levels of, alternatives to a Canadian MD degree and their risk levels if you want to come back to the Canada. Okay, if you don't want to come back to Canada, then this presentation was enough. If you do, check out this post. It's on thebrightdoc.com. Make sure you follow us. Also, again, follow me. I'm going to be dropping the school list I applied to, ExtendMD. And yeah, lastly, to use resources on our website, guys, one subscription gets you access now to all of our resources at once. So you can definitely, use it at the same time for Casper and Preview and just get a lot of, and also check out the personal statement bank, check out these video courses on personal statement and the application cycle. Check out, you can do all these simultaneously under one subscription. And we have a guarantee as well, every cycle guarantee. Awesome.